Well, I am working on sizing some stock, and a lot of times when I'm cutting these pieces, this is a 2x6 that I cut to 7 inches. Yeah, right about 7 inches. So that's 7 1/8. That's 7 1/16. Needless to say, my bandsaw is not doing real well. Now, I have noticed that I was cutting these two pieces stacked together, you know, cutting down like that. And I did notice, I had to do a couple of tweaks to it, but I did notice the blade was curving out around the piece. You know, that's probably a dull blade. Could be a misadjustment. You know, if it's flat and cuts in, you know, the blade's tilted one way and vice versa. And I think my tension was too low. I did up the tension there, and I think that got rid of the bowing for the most part. But it was better to... I've had an issue with these before where if I didn't cut them right, then when I get up to... when I put them in the vise, so let's say the taper's like this, and I find 0, I've set my work coordinate down here at the bottom left in the back, so that way I can just stick it into the vise, flush it up, be good to go, you know, clamp it down, be good to go. But if the taper is too much or something like that, then I've had an issue with I end up with an unmachined surface, because 7 inches is pretty tight on the part. So I've cut these a little longer, but I was having more issues, so I got to square them up. Okay, there's some pretty good daylight at the end there, so even though it seems pretty flat over here, then it tapered off. I don't know why, but and at this point I don't really care. Anyway, the whole point here is that I'm gonna put them in the mill and trim a little off. And once I square the first side up, then the next side, you know, drop it in. Anyway, what I did was I wrote the program in Fusion and made the stock 2 different sizes, and I just duplicated it for the next one. I did tweak, you know, the heights a little bit so that it just because it was easier than redoing sizes and stuff like that. Anyway, you hold the control down and you select both of them, and then when you post-process, it'll post-process both together. And at that point, then once it does that, then I go in and change a few things in the G-code. What I've done here is it's the first time, I think this might be the first time I've ever used it. If not, it's the second, and I've had it for 10 years easy. So, you know, I push it down flush, clamp it in there so that it's square to the base, certainly square enough. Then I took my work coordinate system at the bottom of at the vise where the block's going to sit, the face of the jaw and the face here, okay? And that way when I flip it over, it was easier to manipulate the program doing it that way. So when I put it in the first time, yeah, there we go. See that big gap there? You know, so when I push it up, that gets it square enough. No need to mallet it. It's a big block. I got a lot of grip on it. I don't need to torque it down with the torque wrench. So I modified the program so that it comes down and it'll take a run to shave some off, come back here, and then take another run. It's 2 inches, this is 2 inches. I've done it before where I just took one pass. Issue was I ended up with a fairly good burr on either side if it was off even a tiny bit. So rather than deal with that, it's only a couple more seconds, and I opted to come back to this side and start again, because that way it throws the chips to the back. If it loops and comes back this way, the whole time it travels that back path, it'll be throwing the chips at me. So I just did it that way. I'm running 3,500 RPM at 3 thou per tooth, and that's just because the length of these varies enough that I don't want to chance it. I could probably run, you know, 7 or 8 thou per tooth if I knew for a fact the cut was only going to be 20 or 30 thousandths steep, but at some points it's more like 70 thousandths. So anyway, once I square this up, I can flip it over. I put an M1, I put a M5 in to stop the spindle, and then I told it M1 to pause it. And so it'll stop roughly in that position so I can flip this over. I figured, you know, on my dumbest day I would probably leave the spindle running, but why? It ramps up and ramps down fast enough. I'm not in a huge hurry on these things. If I was, I wouldn't be videoing. So then I'll flip it over, hit the clamp, hit the start again, vrit, vrit, it'll run the next 2 passes, and then, you know, I'll pull it out and put the next piece in. That's basically what I'm doing. As with a lot of these videos like this, it's more for my memory benefit, so if I have to come back and do this again, I got a hope of remembering what the hell I did. So, I've only been running the one mister. I could run 2, but there's plenty of mist there, and it's coming down on the face, so that when it spins, it's carrying the coolant with it. You see it tilt back there? Now that comes out pretty square. Hit start. You can see what I mean about shooting the chips to the back there. That's it. Time to put another block in and basically shoot the same thing for Instagram. So I have it set so it's a hair under 7 inches. Since I'll have a more accurate edge here, I know it won't taper or wander or anything like that, I shouldn't end up with any of the blems like I have before. Because if there was enough taper there and I set it here, you know, it'd walk away enough that I would end up with tooling marks. And hell, even if I did end up with tooling marks, at least I got a nice smooth surface there that instead of a bandsaw cut.